Hi guys, welcome back to the Astro Imaging channel. Tonight's session is a discussion on our imaging setups. We all like talking about gear, so tonight's our opportunity to talk about our gear, what we like about it, what we don't like about it. But as always, well, first of all, this week we had to skip the image of the week. We had, well, we ran out of time, but I did want to point out last week's image of the week because George Virohakis gave me a few things to say about his image. It was taken oh, wrong. I'm sorry, wrong. Now you should be able to see it. Let's make sure of that. Yes, okay. Just a quick blurb about the image. It was taken using very modest equipment. Skywatcher HEQ5 Pro mount, which is the same thing as the Orion Sirius. Skywatcher 80ED Black Diamond OTA. SBIG ST2000XM with astronomic filters. It's a 3-panel mosaic. 60 by 15-minute exposures. Bortle 7 skies, mostly processed in PixInsight with final touches in Photoshop. And that again was by George Virohakis. This image, the Lagoon and the Trifid Nebula. And remember, you can always submit them. I've been getting questions, how do I submit my images? Either just send them over to me via Google, Google Plus. Basically, you just, I think you still see my screen. I've got to check here. Yes, basically, you just click right there, and you just send it to the Astro Imaging channel. I don't think it'll let me send it to myself.
Adam, we're not seeing your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I see it.
I am.
Oh, you're seeing it?
Oh, okay. Sometimes there's a delay. Yeah, basically in that toolbar, I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor, but basically in this toolbar, share a photo, send it over to me, or you can get us on Facebook, or you can email it to me via the contact form on our website. Any of those methods will get it to me, and then you'll be in consideration. But basically, that is it, and I am going to jump right over to my presentation. Ooh, full screen. Which is a very informal presentation today. Okay, my setup. And can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of these pictures are just there to kind of give me a frame of reference. So obviously I'm using a astrophysics mount, or I say obviously, but I'm using an astrophysics mount, but I have it mounted in my observatory on a concrete pier, and in the background there you can see my Rob Miller tripod. That's basically the gist of what goes underneath my scope. And there's not too much to get wrong when it comes to the tripod and the mount. Or I shouldn't say that. A good tripod's always good. Concrete pier even better. But then with the astrophysics mount on top of that, I've got a solid setup. Look at all those counterweights, and that just got that new one, so I was able to pull off my 10-pound barbell. And now it looks almost good. I wanted to photograph my little end cap there, which is filled with a bunch of washers to make it heavy, because still need one more counterweight after buying that massive one at the end there. That's kind of driving me nuts. But my long focal length setup is, and you're seeing the back of it here, I'm now using an AT10RC, and I am using with that an Astrophysics CCD T67 telecompressor. And that telecompressor, based on your distance from your sensor, determines your overall reduction factor. So I kind of put this backwards because I'm going to try and explain it as I go. You can see my Moonlight focuser in there. The Moonlight focuser that I'm using, which is the one that works with the AT10RC, actually allows you to put the telecompressor inside of the focuser. And when I do that, it gives me a reduction factor that I believe is really close to that 0.67 reduction. And if I remember correctly, I'm at right around f5.7 and a focal length of right around 1400 millimeters. And it's interesting, and I'll say a little bit about why I think it's interesting later, but basically what I'll say now is whereas the prime focus on the Astrotech 10RC is 2000 millimeters, with this reduction I am at 1400 millimeters. It's basically the same exact focal length and focal length with reduction that I had with my Edge HD800. And I'll go into a little bit about that in a second. Behind that, I have my SBIG STF 8300M. I'm using the integrated filter wheel and the integrated off-axis guider. And as I said earlier, Moonlight focuser and stepper motor, but I am using the Rigel Systems controller. Yes, you can do that if you're frugal like I am, or if it just works with your system. And you'll see a little bit more about why it works with my system in a second. And also the frugality in me has me still using the Baader filters, LRGB H-alpha 03. But that's not to say I'm not watching Astromart and checking Astromart daily, waiting for some 36 millimeter unmounted Astrodons to pop up. And then after they pop up, I have to beat one of you guys to buy them. Because, well, I check every day, 3-4 times a day. Oh, and I forgot, big note to myself right here. If you guys have any specific questions about any of the systems or the setups that you're seeing here today, ask them. Somebody said describe your optical trains, your power, your cabling, all of that stuff. And those are questions where specifics, you may have a specific question you want answered. On that note, you'll notice that I'm using one of the larger. This is important because I was really curious about this when I bought the AT10RC. Maybe this will save someone some time. I am using the larger spacer in front of the focuser, and then behind that one of the shorter spacers. So that puts my camera right at the perfect distance with the telecompressor. When I take the telecompressor out of there, I believe it messes that whole thing up and makes me remove one of the shorter spacers. As my wide field setup, I use my William Optics Star 71. Did I get a question already? Let me see here. Nope. I'm using the William Optics Star 71. With the Star 71, it doesn't require any focal reducers, so the spacing to the camera, well, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter. You cannot go over that spacing, but you don't have to nail any specific any specific back focus distance. As long as you can come to focus, your field is going to be flat. What do I have? I have the APCCD. Ignore that. That's a screw up right there. I do not use my APCCD T67 with this setup. I do use the same camera, the same filter wheel, the same off-axis guider, and I have it cut off there. On this setup, you can see on top of it, I'm using my Rigel stepper motor. And what's cut off there is the controller. So I use my Rigel controller with both this and the Astrotech, and even my Edge, which I was using before the Astrotech. And that allows me to not have to switch between controllers and when I switch between optical tubes. And the same, I use the Baader filters. Power USB and distribution. So I use a deep cycle marine battery that you see there. The nice thing about this is it has the plug so that I can charge it without taking it out of the case. I have attached a power pole distribution center on that, which gets plugged into the inside of it, which basically lets me plug my my camera. Well, you see that little distribution, that homemade distribution panel on the top there. That distributes my USB and my power. Typically, that's on top of my optical tube. But because I added a whole heck of a lot of weight to the top of my mount when I added the Astrotech RC, I now have it sitting down here. Or at least when I'm using the Astrotech RC, I have it sitting down here on top of the box. It doesn't really change anything, just basically the way it works. But my Rigel controller is sitting inside of that. I do use, at least when I'm in my observatory, I do use my pyramid power supply that you see there sitting on the right to control my mount. And I do run the CCD USB directly rather than running it through the hub. Occasionally, when I run it through the hub, I get this interference pattern thing at the side of my images, and it messes up my images, doesn't let me calibrate them out with biases. So I prefer to run the CCD direct. For acquisition, I have my laptop sitting there, and this is in my observatory. When I am portable, I basically stack up all of my cases and I put my laptop on top of that. But with my laptop, I run Sequence Generator Pro, and above all that, I run TeamViewer, so that when I'm in my observatory or even when I'm portable, I can basically run it all from my phone. That is really convenient, and it allows me to actually monitor my imaging session while I sleep. If I know it's going to get cloudy out, I can maximize my amount of time that I'm running. Just basically watch. If I have my other laptop sitting next to my bed, I just hear PhD starting to go nuts. That means it's getting cloudy, and I go down and I close up. So this is the most frequent question I'm asked. Why did you go from the Edge to the Astro AT10RC? And the answer is more aperture, but I'm not really looking for the, I don't know, 0.2 arc seconds of resolution that I'm getting, and I have the same field of view. So basically what it gives me is it gives me a faster setup. With that telecompressor on there, I have the same field of view, but I'm acquiring data, depending on how I do the math, maybe twice as fast. If I start to take the central obstruction into account, maybe I'm only getting it about 30 to 40% faster, but I am acquiring it faster. And in these short summer months, it really makes a difference. I can actually see the difference in my 30-minute subs, and I've said this before. When we talk about resolution, if you don't have a high enough signal-to-noise ratio, then I'm not sure resolution is so important, because it's noisy, and the noise replaces that true resolution. And I know they're two separate things, but maybe I'm not patient enough to get my signal-to-noise ratio high enough where the actual resolution gain that I'm getting shines through. Well, with my RC, I feel like even in these 30-minute narrowband exposures, I feel like I'm getting more apparent resolution out of it. So maybe it has something to do with that complex algorithm that determines how happy I am with my images, or my even individual subs as I'm stacking them. But yeah, I notice it, and I'm pretty happy with my upgrade so far. I will allow lagging Q&A questions, so if you guys have any questions on my setup, ask them. I think that's the end of my presentation, but
Adam, you've got a couple of questions sitting there.
okay.
One is coming in on Q&A from Rod Palmier. What's the objection with the Beta filters? You mentioned you wanted to get some Mastrodons instead of the Betas.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't see the Q&A yet. So basically, I honestly don't have any real issues with the Baader filters, but come this time of month, very difficult. First of all, H alpha, if I'm shooting towards the moon, it's obvious. I've heard people with the narrow Astrodon say, moon, very little issue as long as you're, I don't know, 15, 20 degrees away from the moon. I can clearly see it in my ADU counts. When it's dark skies, it doesn't really have much of an impact. My O3, when the moon's out, pretty much I will not use it. I try and avoid the O3 at all costs when the moon's out.
Well, is the issue bandpass?
The issue is bandpass and
The width.
the band, yeah, and obviously the Astrodons go down to 3 nanometers, whereas the Baaders are, if I remember correctly, 7 1/8. I think that's where I am. And I just saw that. Hopefully that answers that question. But it basically, I mean, for a long time, I've been trying to motivate myself to, guys, someone in the room, I can hear my voice, I hear an echo. Could you guys mute yourself? I'm just hearing an echo, I'm sorry.
It's me.
Thank you, sorry, Alex, thank you. So I've been trying to, first of all, I guess I wasn't trying to motivate myself. I guess I was trying to motivate myself to be happy with the Baader filters, and I asked a few people who had upgraded from the Baaders to the Astrodons to send me some sample images, and I'll tell you, I saw a difference. Now, it's hard to compare. Well, I shouldn't say that. One of the people that sent me the image was actually taken on the same day, right after the other. He wanted to see what his money was getting for him. And I'll tell you, if you're willing to spend $600 on filters, then your money can make a difference. So that's basically the difference. Larry Groom's asking, why the 12-volt battery in the observatory instead of a 12-volt DC power supply? And this goes back to that through the mount cabling. I like being able to just pick my mount up with all the cables inside of it, put it into the box, and take it portable. And if I'm running 12-volt DC specifically to my camera, then I end up having to change adapters, change all sorts of different stuff. This way, I get kind of a consistent flow where I know if it's working today and I pick it up, put it in my box, and remember everything, then when I bring it to my dark site, it's probably going to work the same way. It also forces me to keep my battery charged. Basically, I find that having that consistent setup just works well. And at the same time, now I kind of spoil it because I do use the Pyramid power supply, and it doesn't happen frequently. But if I do lose power, or I'll tell you this, I dream of East Coast power outages, because if everybody loses their power, well, the skies get really dark, and that's probably the best time you can image. Not that that's really going to happen, but well, I think it happened once, right? Do you guys remember the East Coast power outage? That probably won't happen again. But that's my shot. So yeah, basically, I hope that answered your questions. Like I said, I'll allow lagging questions on anyone's setup. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on because
wait, you got another one over in the room itself came in.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's about your counterweights. Go back to the picture of your counterweight, and I don't know if it was somebody here that was telling me this or somebody else, but that.
Yes.
Wait. Go ahead.
Yes. Do I have a better picture of the counterweight? Okay. I think you can see it if I. Yeah, there you go. If I go to the other slide, if I go to the full screen slide, I won't be able to read your question. Yeah, counterweights up higher are more effective. I think it has to do with the moment arm, because I think it has to do with the moment arm. I'm not quite sure if that would technically be the reasoning, But
Does anybody out there listening actually, can give me the solid reasoning on why I should spend more money on counterweights? Because I'm going to, like you can see, Adam there would have to have more counterweights if he wants to move the counterweight up, and he already said that he didn't have enough counterweight as it is. So, I mean, why should I go spend more money on counterweights? A real reason, that somebody who knows engineering talk and stuff like that. Anybody out there?
Alex, are you asking why you should have? It's better to have heavier counterweights closer to the axis than.
That's right. I've been told that, and I'm sitting there in my little brain. I was an English teacher. My little brain says, why would it matter? Somebody that knows, tell me.
It's a moment of inertia.
Okay. Okay.
So basically the overall thing is it's harder for the mount to react the further the weight away is from the axis. So if you can get it in a little bit closer, then it should be a little bit easier if you have more weight in closer as opposed to less weight out further away.
Thank you.
So, I found that out by trial and error, and Josh is absolutely correct. What happens is if you have less counterweights all the way out, the guiding corrections on the RA will create a little vibration, and that vibration continues because the weight is so far out, if that makes any sense.
Well, that would be an additional reason on top of basically resistance to motion. So if there's more weight, or if there's weight further out, then there's a little more resistance to corrective motion.
Well, but it's all the same moment arm inertia that's doing that. It's all the same cause. It's just different ways to express the manifestation.
Not precisely.
Okay. At any rate, it is better to have more weights closer up on the counterweight bar than to have fewer weights out further.
Correct.
Okay.
yes. And if I'm also watching Astromart for some counterweights as well. I actually picked up that large one, which was custom made. I should have a great picture of that because it's a 12.4 counterweight that was made to go on a Mach 1 shaft. So it's a little bit heavier, and I thought I would get along with just that, but it turns out I still need more weight. So I have an ugly pipe fitting hanging off the bottom there that you really can't see. But yeah, that's basically it. Okay. All right, I'm sorry, I was just reading that comment. I'm going to jump back to Q&A. Just make sure there's not one more comment or question. And why is my Q&A lagging? I don't know. Oh, yes, okay. Yeah, moment arm, inertia thing, mount start stops. Maybe less flex because of the lower lever arm. Yeah, I think that could probably have something to do with it. It's like the whole... I don't know if you ever use a yardstick. Does anybody ever use yardsticks these days? But you put a quarter on the end of a yardstick, and it's real hard to balance it. But if you put it up close, it's kind of easy to balance it. Maybe, I don't know.
It's essentially because it's a function of the radius squared. So because it's not linear, then the further away stuff goes. When it's squared, it has a greater effect.
Gotcha.
And there's a link here if you want to look at the equation to understand it.
Aha. Now that's a long link. I'll have to check that out after.
But easy picture.
But a quick picture. Let's see. Maybe I can... Hold on. What's this going to do? Am I still full screen sharing? No, I'm not. This will give us our answer in a diagram, kind of.
There you go. I'm sharing it.
Oh, awesome, awesome. There we go. So, parallel axis theorem. I think that's one of those things you have to look at and think about for a long time before you really get the concept of it. But what I'm going to do now is I am going to open this window because the next person who wanted to go over some aspect of his setup is Eric Coles, who is in the room, and I am going to share what he wanted me to share, and I believe you can see it there. There you go. Eric is still in the room?
Yes, can you go to full screen on the
Yes, give
PDF?
me 1 second.
There you go.
Yep, there we go.
You can actually go to full screen. Command L. You got a PC or a Mac?
PC.
Control L.
You see it full screen or no?
Yep.
Yeah?
Okay. Oh, thanks, Adam. A couple of years ago, I was lucky enough to get my hands on an AP130 GT, which I was told was really a fine scope and has performed nicely here in my light polluted skies in Glen Ellen. And I was perfectly happy with that, got some nice image, a lot of them posted on AstroBin, until I went to AIC last fall, and AP then had a 130 Starfire GTX, which is the next generation of the 130 GT. And I became jealous of that scope and was thinking about getting on the list for that, but I think it was 10 years. So I talked to George, and I said, how can I convert my 130 GT to a GTX? And he said, you have to change the focuser, you have to get a new telecompressor or a field flattener, and if you do that, you'll be good to go. That was last fall, and in the last couple weeks, I finally got most of the parts to make that conversion. And on the next slide, you can see that. Now I've gotten everything except the connectors from Precise Parts. So what I had in mind was, this is the AP 3.5-inch focuser, and the TCC, the telecompressor, which is a 0.72 and flattener, fits inside that focuser, and it's screwed in. I don't have the adapters between the telescope and the cameras, so my idea was to get 2 cameras which will fit on the AP 130. The 11002, which you see sitting there beside it, and the 8300, the SBIG STT. And to do that, I need just 2 adapters from Precise Parts. And the other thing I need to do is that flattener. That is the flattener from the 130, and I'm sending that back to AP, and they're going to put it into the housing that's the same as the TCC. So basically, the optics for my flattener will go into the housing for the TCC, and therefore I can switch between a reducer 0.72 to basically 1, and with the same back focus. So with that setup, just by changing the cameras and the adapter from Precise Parts, I can go to 4 different field of views. And on the next slide, I've actually calculated what those would be. And on the left-hand side, you see the 130 with just a flattener on it, and the 130 with the TCC. And on the right side, you see the 130 with the 11002 camera with the reducer flattener and with just a flattener. And so by doing that, I basically go from a 1.19 square degrees all the way to 8.19 square degrees, basically with 1 telescope and 2 cameras and 2 reducers. And since I only really do narrow band here, that will basically be able to see all the emission nebulas that I really want to see with basically 1 telescope. And as soon as I get the Precise Parts adapters, that'll be put into service. That's my presentation.
Very cool. What's your, do you know your sampling? Oh, there it is, resolution, got it.
Yeah, basically, I'm a little undersampling. If you look at the big camera and just without the reducer, I'm undersampling a little bit. But all that means is for narrow band is that, you know, that I get just a few pixels for some of the small stars. But basically, the images come out fine.
Yeah. And you have a separate high-res setup elsewhere.
You mean I have the... Yeah, I have other telescopes but I'm trying to get, basically I got a difference in field of view of about 7x between those. So that covers a lot of territory. And actually that's with the reducer. You can see how fast that is. That's down to f4.5. That's relatively fast. Even the 130 as it is an f6.3. And I was assured by George that even with the reducer, it's going to cover that 11002 chip quite nicely. And the off-axis guider. And just like yours, both of those cameras have the built-in off-axis guiders. The 11000 camera has all Astrodons in it, and the STT, the 8300, has the Botters, which I've used before, and I haven't had any problem with them, even though you're right, you don't want to shoot too close to the moon.
The other, I'm sorry for interjecting something that I forgot about. The other thing is in the O3, with my RC, I do get halos around bright stars, a lot of bright stars, whereas with my Edge, I didn't notice the halos around the bright stars as frequently. I would get them, but with the RC, it's around basically every bright star. Now I'm kind of one of the funny people. As particular as I am, I don't mind halos so much. There've been I've done some renderings where I actually synthesized halos to make the image look more real. So go figure. Larry Groom, Eric, is asking what program are you using to determine your data? And I don't know if it was just to generate those spreadsheets.
Oh, you mean this last slide?
Yeah.
It was just one of the field of views. Actually, there was one of the field of view calculators, and actually they said try out this one. They have a next generation one.
That's the 12D string field of view calculator.
Yeah. It gave a nice graphics. I just cut and paste those, put them together. The other thing is with the, you're worried about the moon and the O2 filter or the O3 filter. Basically, if you do tone mapping, I don't want to say it makes no difference, but it hardly makes any difference because you're getting rid of stars and you're just looking for that contribution. Mm-hmm. So the only one that's really critical is EHA.
Okay. I think I see another question popping up. Oh, no. 12string. The calculator that Eric used is www.12d-string.me/FOV-CALZ.php. 12-string field of view calculator. Google it.
Yeah, 12D string.
12D string field of view calculator.
That one's great. That's what I use all the time as well.
Yep.
Yeah, it's nice. It gives those other results too. When you run a calculator, what your field of view is, and have it represented for you visually, like that. It makes for a nice presentation.
It's interesting that you are doing that custom. I don't know if it was fully explained here, but that custom, right there, the flattener telecompressor, because basically it's one of those things that it just makes life a lot more convenient. Not having to worry about back focus, just screwing it right in and going, and you're not forgetting the wrong part if you go somewhere.
Well, basically, you're only going to have one part, which is the adapter. And the back focus is going to be exactly the same, so that the adapters just have to be different considering the back focus of the two cameras.
Right, right.
And if you leave the adapter, in fact, for the 11002, I'm going to have one that basically screws right onto the front plate of the filter wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you notice, you see that the new focuser has the captain's wheel for rotation adjustment, which is nice.
Oh, yeah.
I'm probably going to put a little scale around that, since I don't know why they didn't scribe a scale, but just put a little scale around that so I can get my angle, even though I basically only have it 90 degrees one way or the other.
Is that new on the GTX, the captain's wheel?
Yes, that's part of the focuser. That's new on the 3.5-inch focuser.
Okay.
So
Don't they?
that's, the only thing I'm missing is the decal.
Oh yeah.
You got. I'm going to try to talk them into a badge, but I don't think that's going to work. In fact, the thing that's holding up putting my old flattener into the new housing is some pricing, and that's only taken 6 months.
Hmm.
I think everything takes longer at AP.
Yeah. Well, quality takes time. That's the way it works. All right. I don't see any more questions on R2 setups, but guys, if you have them, throw them in. If I see one pop up, I will share it. But right now, I'm going to hand it over to Josh, who I know wants to share some stuff about his setup.
Thanks, Adam. Okay, so I will share my current setup, which is a AP Mach 1 on an Eagle Pier with the Tech 140, QSI 690, the field flattener, and the assorted peripherals on top. So to describe a little bit of why I ended up at this setup, I've gone through a handful of the ATRCs, which they were fine, but I really enjoy shooting with refractors. I like the quality the refractor gives, kind of the sharpness, and also the simplicity of it. And for a while there, I was shooting with 4-inch refractors and a 683, a QSI 683, which is really a really great combination for kind of semi-wide field and still pretty good resolution. And what I really wanted to end up doing, though, was having one very high-resolution imaging rig and one wide field rig. So I'll show you the wide field rig a little bit later on, but the high-res rig is something that I tried out earlier last year with the QSI 690 and the Tech 140. And at the time, I did not use a field flattener because the field on the Tech 140 is pretty much so flat that it wasn't an issue without a field flattener for the 690. However, one of the issues with the Tech 140, especially on these Sony sensors, is that they're not perfectly corrected in the blue channel all the way down to 400 nanometers, and your blue filter is going to go down 400 nanometers, and as is your luminance filter. And so what that means is if you focus on your blue channel or your luminance channel, then you actually get what some people like to call a little bit of bloat, but what it really is just that part of the channel is not as well focused as it should be. So for the blue channel, you're only getting about half the channel real crisply focused, and on the bottom end it starts bloating. And same thing on the luminance channel. And unfortunately, it was really frustrating because with such a high-res setup and a small field of view, you really want your stars to be tight and your details to be tight. And if you're not in perfect focus, then they're just going to balloon very quickly. So the image scale that this produces is 0.74 arc seconds per pixel. And so anyways, I tried that last year, and I was pretty happy with the details I was getting, especially in narrowband. But I noticed pretty quickly that the stars were out of control at the time, and I didn't think there was anything you could do about it. And it put me on about a year-long search for another scope where I was trying other scopes out. And these Sony sensors, if you want really high resolution, give you they can give you some pains because there are very few scopes that correct well enough at high resolution with them. Anyhow, on Cloudy Nights, one of our buddies, I think he's known as Peter in Reno, had mentioned that, actually shared an article that said that if you use the Tech Field Flattener, then it should actually help correct that blue channel somewhat. And that sort of came up after the AP TCC came out, where they also stated and tested with the Tech 140 that they correct the blue channel as well. So that was really exciting news, and it's definitely something that I'll be trying probably before too long, is putting the AP reducer on this scope because it's such a good match for it. Anyhow, so when I heard about that was earlier this year, and I knew I wanted to go back to a high-resolution rig. I decided to give that a try, and I just kind of hoped that it would work. And I decided if it wasn't going to work with the Sony sensor, that I would go back and put on my 680, my old 683. I basically decided if it didn't work, I'd switch to an 8300 chip, which isn't what I wanted to do because I really wanted that high resolution stuff for the good skies that we have down here in Florida. And so this time I got the field flattener, and I also followed some good tutorials on making sure I got the correct adapters to go from the field flattener to the QSI 690. And after a little bit of testing, it made a huge difference. Everything was very sharp afterwards. So for those of you who have these Sony cameras and are wanting a bigger scope, I know that a lot of us are curious how they work with Stellarvue's new bigger scopes and waiting anxiously on a few people's results from that. I know that David Alt is now using the Esprit 120 with one of these Sony sensors and is getting good results. So these sensors are really great for really clean images and getting high resolution work, but a little bit of a job finding nice matching telescopes for them. So I'll go on from why I chose the setup, and I'll briefly go to the Eagle Pier and the Mach 1. The Eagle Pier I got just because I knew I was going to be going to a good bit of star parties with this. I also probably will do some mobile imaging with it, and well, a good deal came up on one. It was what I really wanted. I've seen them in person before. I knew they were great and very, very solid, very well made, and also pretty easy to adjust the height. You can see down here there's just a knob that you loosen and tighten to move the leg up and down. You do kind of have to tilt the rig to do that, but in my opinion it's well worth it. You can see these knobs which tighten in around the ring of the pier of the Eagle Pier. And it allows you to actually move this whole pier up and down, so you can change the height on the pier, which is nice for longer scopes like this Tech 140, where it's going to reach down almost to the legs. And actually, I don't have it pictured here, but I also have the 8-inch extension that you can purchase for this. And that'll let you spread the legs out a little bit wider and get the pier up a little bit higher. So it's really just a very, very nice pier. It's definitely expensive, and it's something that you're definitely gonna want to think about. But I'd say if you're in an observatory and never moving, you probably don't want it. But if you're mobile imaging, especially now that the Rob Miller tripod that Atom has is not available, this is a great option. I also know some people use the Losmandy HD folding tripod, and I think maybe some people use the Burla Block wooden tripod, which is also very nice. So if you have a setup similar to this is the correct counterweight, I guess, position and orientation here for this setup, so you can make note of it. I can't remember exactly what size those two counterweights are. I don't know if you can tell just by looking at them. I just remember they came with it and they happen to work.
Should be the 6 or 9, right?
Maybe. I think actually one of them is.
You have a larger bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head. 9 to 22, or?
Sorry to be the counterweight question guy, but why do you have them split apart? Is there an advantage to that, or what?
This was the first day that I set it up, and just kind of was moving them around to see where I want it. But usually, for a guy who used to use an Atlas for a long time, I didn't believe that you really could just balance them well and have it work perfectly. So on the Atlas mount, you always had to move one of the counterweights up and down a little bit to get optimum performance so that you were east heavy. And so to accomplish that with the Atlas, what you would do is kind of split the counterweights a little bit, and then that way you could move them up and down depending on what side of the axis you were on. So fortunately, I don't have to do that anymore, and I'm not sure if I moved them back together, but as I told you, it would be better to have them as close as you can to the pier. So likely you'd move the bottom one in some and the top one down some to really be optimum. But yeah, to answer your question, it was because when I first set up, I didn't believe that you could have perfect balance and get really good guiding, but you can. So that's, at least with this setup, it wasn't necessary. So moving on, up here, one of the things that people always like is the through-the-mount cabling and how clean that allows everything to be, which is really is a big difference coming from something like an Atlas, where you're working on kind of a rat's nest of cabling. So you can see from the side view here that really I only have 2 bundles of cables coming up. I have one that comes up to kind of my power distribution and data distribution, and I have another one that comes up to the axis right here. So I can move on a little bit here and talk about some of the other stuff, I think, with my closer rig. Actually, let me point out one other thing here on this zoomed out version. You actually can't see it, unfortunately, in this one because it's on the other side, but the one thing that I do have is a PosiDrive focuser. It's Feather Touch, the one for the 3.5-inch Feather Touch focuser. And the reason that I got that is I tried a couple other different automatic focusers for it, and unfortunately I would always get a little bit of slippage. And if you're doing automated focusing throughout the night, and you get just a little bit of slippage, well, one thing is that your focus position is just going to keep going out over time, and you'd have to reset it once in a while. That's not the end of the world, but it's not ideal. But really, the real issue comes to getting really crisp focus, and if you're going from one filter to another and have offsets, and you're not focusing on that filter, and even if you are focusing on that filter, you go past that position and then come back in. And if you get any kind of slipping like that with a small critical focus zone, then you're not necessarily going to get it centered right. And you never really quite know how that slippage is going to affect your focuser. I mean, it depends on how much weight you have on the end, where in the sky you're pointing, and stuff like that, and the tension that's on your focuser and everything. So the beautiful thing about the PosiDrive, once you have it installed correctly, screwed onto your focuser correctly, you can't get slippage with it because of the belt drive and the direct drive nature of it. So there's no way to get slipping once you get to that point. And it, you know, people who struggle sometimes with their V curves and maybe SGP or something, and they don't get sharp Vs, or they see their focus numbers slipping out. That's usually why that is, and that's why I always recommend, if you are kind of OCD about it or really want the sharpest focus possible, you really are going to want a rack and pinion focuser, and something like the PosiDrive. I think that somebody else makes one that's very similar. Optec, I think, maybe makes one that's just like this. And Optec's actually the one that has the controller for this PosiDrive. So I just wanted to mention that. I think that was another really big deal that made this scope usable for me, because I really struggled with focus on it for a while until I did that. So coming up from there, I don't have the precise parts that I use to get from the Tech 140 to the QSI 690, but if somebody wants to reach out to me, they can. I can provide the part adapter, but I bought the 2.156-inch plate for the QSI 690, so that way I have, the reason I really did that is in case I want to go to the 683 again, and that way I have the widest opening coming in there. Not that it matters on the 690, but it would on the 683. So if anybody wants that detail, I can let you know. You can see these are where the dew heater strips are placed, one up top here right before the objective, and one down here right at the field flattener. You can see I also moved to Lotus Star guider. I had thought about going to the new one, either the 2 or I can't remember what the newest one is, the Ultra. But I did move up from the QH5L2 to this, only because I was afraid of driver issues, and at the time that I was making these upgrades, I had never had a failure on the QHY, but I've heard a lot of people were struggling when they were making the new updates in SGP, so I went to this just to make sure I didn't have any issues, and I haven't had any issues with it, and I've definitely never had any issues finding guide stars, so at this point it doesn't make sense really to spend more money on a more sensitive one just because it's not necessary. So let me move on here to this, and this is sort of my electronics rig up on top here with the cabling and everything I have. So you can see right here I have the PosiDrive controller, which is Feather Touch's Focus Boss 2 dual focus controller system. So if I was to get another telescope on there, which I may in the future, then you can control 2 focusers with it. Here you can see, I think this one I was just using a Thousand Oaks dew heater controller. And right going through the middle here is my power pole, power distribution rig, and I keep a couple empty slots there. One for different kinds of things that I might need to plug in to get a little bit more power on there. And let me see if the side view here shows. Yep, here I use the this is my USB external powered USB, and it has 4 USB slots in it. And you just have to put a little power pole connector on the end of this cable here, and it'll power the powered USB with 12 volts right there. And so that is pretty much all the stuff that I have up on top of the telescope, I believe. And you can see here, I mostly got very short USB wires, so most of the ones that I am using are 12 inches or something like that. The only real mess here is my my dew heater strip, and you can see that's bundled up right here, and that's because I didn't feel like rewiring the dew heater strip to get it to be the optimal length. But other than that, everything else is just kind of a custom length USB connector to go right to where it needs to. And from the side view, you can see here how it's kind of really clean around everywhere. Make sure there's no drag, nothing to get snagged on. So that is overall the Tech 140 setup. And one other thing I'll point out, I guess, before I move on to the next one, is the way that I have this mounted here. You can see that I have a plate on top of my scope, and you can see I have these 2 little mini dovetail connectors on that plate. And the reason for that is it's very easy just to take this whole plate off, slide it off, and put it onto another telescope, and I've got everything I need right there. So all I have to do is slide it off, and wires come with it. I unplug this one wire right here and the camera wire, and it's easy just to pop onto another telescope. So, Adam, any questions here before I show the last rig?
Yeah, so one just popped in and disappeared on me, but it was the same question I was going to ask, so I remember it. Why the dew heater on the field flattener?
To help a little bit with any moisture that can actually get in here. I guess we had quite a bit of dew in Pennsylvania where I was at, but it was never anything like it is here. So I don't remember if it's ended up here or here in between. I think actually I ended up getting a smaller one that I put right here in between the flattener and the CCD, but it just helps avoid any frosting or dewing of the glass down here.
Maybe if you're taking it apart and putting it back together when it's humid out.
Right, exactly. Both the flattener itself and the camera. If you unthread the camera, and if you do that anytime between April and December here, then you're definitely getting quite a bit of moisture in there.
Okay, Ken Sturrock is commenting that he's happy with his QSI 690 on his Stellarvue 100 millimeter.
Yeah, he has the SVQ 100, I think,
yeah.
Which is that's an awesome scope. I've seen his results from that, which are fantastic. The one that I think I've also seen some results from the SVS 130, but I haven't seen is the SVA 130 ED, which I think is their new 130, and then I think they also came out with a 6-inch scope this year, which excited to see the results on that.
Yep.
So
those are the sextuplets, or is it 7?
Yeah, the SVS 130 is the sextuplet, and I think the 152 may be a triplet, I believe.
Okay.
And then the SVA 130 ED is their triplet as well. So I'll quickly go on to the other rig if there's no other questions or comments.
Nope.
Okay, so not a lot of stuff to repeat here, but this was the old scope that I hope to get again for my wide field rig. This was obviously before I sorted out all the cables and stuff. I think this was the first night that I had this on here. But this was the TOC FSQ 85 ADX, and I got this again for one of the same reasons, to get a very well color corrected scope to go with a 690, and I wanted something as wide and fast as possible because of the small chip of the 690. I don't have to explain anything else because the Mach 1, all that was the same with this setup. You can see the same rail up on top here has all the same stuff. The one thing that you can't see quite as well if I zoom in here was the FSQ ED, was their focal reducer, the 0.73 focal reducer. So that brought it to f3.8, and I think the focal length was 329 millimeters on it. So the ideal combination will be one of these, doing kind of real wide field work, and the Tech 140. So a few comments on this scope. I had to do a lot of work to get the scope working right for me, and I don't know that that's uncommon for the FS285. I thought maybe at first that it was I got one bad scope that was definitely bad and had really bad collimation. I got another scope that I really struggled to get round stars to the corners with, and I see this with a lot of people, and I was a little disappointed because out of the box you kind of expect a scope like this just to work really well, especially since it's known for having a very native flat field. I've had experiences with the 106s which all worked great right out of the box and were very flat to the edge. This one I could not get, no matter what I was doing with the stock setup, at native or at reduced focal length. So eventually I did a lot of messing around with the focuser, and I finally kind of figured out if I tested with the scope pointing straight up at the sky, literally perfectly straight up at the sky, I could get pretty round stars to the edge if I manually focused it to a very very sharp point. Unfortunately, I could never get the focuser to work very well on that one, both for focus and also for any kind of sag or tilt. So I gave up on that, and I was about to give up on the scope, but I contacted Wayne and John from Feather Touch and said, hey, I think you'd really do well to make a focuser for this scope. So I worked with him to get one made and put it on there, and I believe they actually do sell them now regularly. But it's their 3-inch Feather Touch, and I don't remember what size the draw tube was on it, but he knows which one works well with it. And pretty much immediately, I could tell a big difference, and the other big difference was going from the micro touch focuser to the posi drive on this as well. And like I said before, any slippage makes focusing hard. When you're shooting at f3.8 with tiny pixels, your critical focus zone is very, very small. And until I got the Feather Touch focuser with the posi drive and really kind of tuned in the tension on that focuser, I could not get the field to look very good at all, and took a lot of messing around with it. But fortunately, it did work. So when people ask about that scope, I say, well, if you can go through the pain of setting it up and getting the focuser working right, and are, at least in my case, willing to pay the increase to get the Feather Touch focuser on there, I think you really can't do better. But obviously, it's all kind of a trade-off for cost and simplicity and stuff like that. And at least of all the ones I've seen, I don't know how you could do it without a very good electronic focuser, and I couldn't personally make it happen without the Feather Touch focuser as well. So that's the wide field rig, and the plan will be to just be able to kind of basically swap those back and forth.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh.
Yep. Thank you.
So I see a lot of people in the room, and I hate to leave you guys hanging, but we decided to make this a 2-part series because we still have a few more people that wanted to present. I'm going to steal my camera back, but oh, I won't let me steal my camera back. Oh, there we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue this next week. There are a few other people in the room who will present. I will keep their names a secret right now, but a lot of them have some pretty cool gear. And basically, if you watch this program and have questions about our gear, but you're thinking about it and you want to save it for next week, put it in the comments of this program, and we will get to them next week too. So we'll kind of cover a lot in the meantime. But I hate to do this because there are actually a lot of people in the room, so this is a really good topic, it looks like. But trust me, next week will be all worth it. We're going to see some cool stuff.
Adam, can I interrupt you for a second?
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah. You know, there's no reason that it should be just us either. I know that an awful lot of you people would like to share your scopes. I tried to take some videos of people sharing their setups at Nightfall last year, and I never could work out the details of how to get it onto the screen and stuff like that. But contact Adam and say, you know, Adam, I've got some real good implementations. I've got a real good setup, and I had to work through some real details on getting mine to work. Contact him, and we can do this show every once in a while where we put a few people like you on, and you know, we can show what kind of imaging rigs are out there and how people are solving problems.
And Alex, I know you have an advertisement too.
Yeah, and I've got an advertisement if I could do. You want me to do the advertisement now?
Go right ahead. Well, I'll let you do it next week as well.
Okay, we'll do it twice because that's cool to do. Okay, am I screen sharing yet?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I am going to take you to, let me see, I got to make sure I don't cancel this. Okay, we're still screen sharing. That we're up in Devil's Tower. This is probably, well, about a year ago. Devil's Tower is where that is. But where I want to take you is to Nightfall 2016. For those of you who don't know about Nightfall, and I know a few of you in the room do know about it already, we take over a resort and we take out all the lights in the hotel and we make them red lights. And so it's a really cool star party. You know, it's like a star party except that everybody takes a shower because they've got hotel rooms and stuff like that. But the reason it's important to us is Nightfall 2016 is going to have workshops. And the workshop that's important to us is Richard Wright. Richard Wright has been on the Astro Imaging channel, and you've probably seen his article in Sky and Tel not too long ago. Richard's a pretty good imager. Registration is now open on the Nightfall Star Party workshop, or nightfallstarparty.com workshops. If you Google Nightfall Star Party and go to the workshops area, you will find out how to register. It costs $60 for an all-day workshop with Richard. I know Larry's been there, and a few other people that are in the room right now, well, that are watching right now, have been there. And it's a really good event. I just wanted to get you guys turned on to it, start your registering for it and stuff like that. It's October 29th. His workshop runs from 10 to 4. We take over the resort starting about Wednesday night, though, and run through Sunday pretty much. You can stay till Monday if you want, or you can stay whenever you want. It's a hotel resort. It's cool. So you can stay whenever you want there. And we own the whole place, astronomers. So contact, you know, get to Nightfall Star Party and see what you can do about coming visiting with us. Okay, thanks, Adam.
No problem. That sounds really cool.
It is really, really, really cool. It is a lot of fun.
Okay, all I'll say is, Mike, I see your comment in the comments section, and the advice that you got right below it is really good advice. That's all I'll say. Maybe I'll try and post a comment in there in regards to a specific setup. Then Larry Groom Alex is asking, what happened to that video you took of his setup at Nightfall last year?
We can't get a video to reproduce the audio on the Astro Imaging channel. And so I did a few other dumb things, like I didn't get your contact information so I could tell you be sure to be on the Astro Imaging channel the night we're doing this, and you know, the guy behind the camera was really incompetent as far as his jitteriness and stuff like that. So I have to get a whole another cameraman to do that kind of stuff because the guy we had was a real idiot. So you know, so there.
All right. Well, guys, thank you. We will continue this next week. Thanks to all the presenters. Anyone out there that's interested in presenting about their setup, has a specific setup or something really cool that they want to show off, let me know. Contact me on Google+, contact me on Cloudy Nights, contact me via our website contact form, basically anything, and I'll give you an opportunity. But thanks for coming, and see you next week.